Alright guys, here we go again with something different. Let's just say from now on my channel, you never know what you're going to see. Most of the stuff's going to be will it run type videos. Excuse me. But I also do a lot of little tinkering and stuff like this. And sometimes I modify things, try to make them a little better. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. With the cooler weather coming up, we've got one of these little Mr. Heater Big Buddies. It takes the dual little bottles of propane, one on either end, and it works really good, but the problem is it burns through those bottles quick. And and it does have a little actual blower motor up here, but it's battery operated and it eats up batteries really quick also. So we really hardly ever use the blower motor anymore. We use it through one set of batteries and was like, nope, we'll just use the radiant heat to heat. And what we use this for is in the garage, my wife won't smoke in the house, so she'll go out there and smoke, and it's really, really cold because the north wind is blowing right into the garage. So she'll crack the door open, get fresh air, but it's still really, really cold out there. So every winter, I go down to, excuse me, I'll go down to Tractor Supply or Atwoods or somewhere, and I'll buy a case of those bottles of propane, and we'll burn through all of them and nothing flat. So I had one of these setups I built a couple of years ago and had it hooked to this, and it worked really good. And what I would do is I had two of these hose adapters that screw onto those bottles and screw onto like a standard, I don't know what them are, 5-gallon propane bottles. And it lasts a good bit longer, and it's a lot cheaper to refill that bottle. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make another one of those adapters, and you'll need two of these, and you'll be cutting and splicing to where you basically have one of these go into your big bottle, and then it'll go up and Y off into two of these, and then you can just run them in, one to each bottle receptacle, and then you can run both burners off of one big bottle. So kind of a list of materials, and I literally bought all this stuff at Atwoods last night. I didn't really want to do this away, because usually you can buy a tee that's pre-made. I think the one I used the last time was like a nylon barbed tee, and I believe these are 1/4 or 5/16 to fit inside the line. And then of course you need some hose clamps. It doesn't have a whole lot of pressure, so you ain't got to worry about it blowing this line off. Obviously, if you smell the propane and it has that stuff in it to make it smell for that reason, then yeah, don't light it. But this is just what I'm doing. I don't recommend doing this, because if you don't know what you're doing or you don't do it right, it could be bad. But this is just something I'm going to build for myself and for my wife, so we can kind of stay warm and not have to, like last winter, I bet I had 30 of those little green bottles of propane empty just to dispose of. It's ridiculous. I mean, I may keep the ones I use this year, and when they're completely empty, cut them open and use them for some kind of art project, sculpture, or one of my other projects. Might even see if we can make a little fuel tank out of them for a mini bike or something. I don't know, and that would be a future video. So anyways, we're going to open this other one up. I've got my Teflon here, liquid Teflon. I don't like using the tape, because you can actually, if you put too much on these fittings and you really crank down on them, you can actually crack one of the sides. If you really, because it's just so much to compact, and everybody's like, oh no, it won't do that. Yep, it will do it. So I like using the liquid. You crank them down till they're good and tight, and then when it dries, they're not going to leak. But yeah, the tape itself, and I've seen people just put they'll have the threads built up to the into the nut here. And yeah, that's way too much Teflon. You don't need that much. And really, I use this, but I've also, they got several different ones. A really good one is called Gasoila, and you can get it in a little can like this, or maybe a little bit bigger. It's kind of grayish color. They got another one, it's something blue. It's got Teflon in it. It's just pipe sealant is all it is. And any of them will work on this. Obviously, you don't want to goop it all over where it gets down in here. It ends up blowing through the end of this and ends up in your heater, and then it won't work. So right now we're going to cut this open, and then I'll go put this together, tighten it down the shop, and then we'll come back in here, put the clamps on it, and I'll have to go get the bottle off the barbecue grill because I know it's full. I've got another one. I need to go take it sometime today and get it refilled, but I know that one's full, so we'll hook it all up and we can test it out. So let's get going. I already cut that one. And you want to make these long enough to where you can get, you know, the bottle as far back as you want. So we'll probably cut it, we'll leave about a foot or so. Them will fit. I may have to go to a smaller one. Oh, they'll work. This is going to be really snug. And we may even have to heat these up a little bit. And that's fine. And I'm going to keep this for maybe another project later on down the road. We don't need that. We only need one of these, and you'll need two of these. And like I said, that will screw right into here. In fact, we're going to take these out. These are full. I just put them on last night. I actually bought 8 of these also. And you can see it has this here, that hole, that is for one of these. They actually make one you can buy, but I can never find them. But yeah, this is a nice little heater. It does a really good job, but I just get tired of going through so many of them little bottles and then having to dispose of them at that. Yeah, these hoses are really stiff. I'm going to cut that one off a little more square. Probably that one too. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, get some really hot water going in the sink to soften these up. It'll make it easier to get on those barb fittings. So let me do that, and then I'm going to, well, let's just go ahead and get these all Tefloned up. really all you need. That's more than enough Teflon. Alright, I'm gonna go soak the hoses, tighten these up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got them tightened down. I'm just gonna wipe off the excess Teflon. And then we'll get our hoses over here and see if we can't squish them on there and clamp them. Alright, gotta do this kind of quick before the hoses cool off. I can already tell they're gonna be hard to get on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide one clamp on there. That's gonna be this one. I would have never got them on if they were cold. Because they're still pretty hard to get on there after they've been warmed up. That's what you want. You want a good tight fit. Alright. So, now all we gotta do is slide these down, tighten them up, and then we can go out there and hook up our bottle and hook it to the heater and see what it's gonna do. Hang tight. Alright, so let's get the screwing. About you, but it seems like clamps nowadays are made a whole lot cheaper than they used to be. They're thinner, just cheaper made, and even the hex part where you put a nut driver on it or something, they don't seem, they're already rounded when they're new. Seems like ridiculous. And you don't want to tighten them so much it actually cuts into the hose, obviously. And like I said, you can buy these. They make an adapter that does just this, but I can never find them. You know, I should have made this a little longer so this wasn't up in the air, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay, now let's hook them up to this dude. And that's where the batteries go for. Ooh, they're rough looking. Yeah, that'll never work again. Would have been nicer if they had an adapter to go to like 110 volt where you could actually plug something in. Hand tied only. Okay, so there's all the bottles I bought last night. There's our propane bottle hooked up to our lines. We'll just turn the fuel on and we'll see if we can't get her to light. It's probably going to take a while since we took the bottles out. Now it's put more air in the system. We got to bleed that out. There we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Now that thing will have plenty of heat. You kick it down on low and it only, or medium, it uses one burner. Low, it has one burner barely on. Then you kick it all the way back up to high. Both of them light. That ought to make her happy. Alright. Well, that's it for this video, guys. Like I said, in the last few videos I made at the beginning, it's like, we're going to do a little something different here. Well, be prepared, because the next few videos I make, and probably from here on out, are going to be like that. They're going to be something different. So instead of just saying that at the beginning of every video, hey, this is going to be... Just be prepared. That's pretty much what they're going to be from here on out. I've got several things I got to fabricate and build. I've got the mini bike project, which I want to do something different with it. I don't want to do the standard trike rear end. What I'd really like to do would be two wheels on the back, but one behind the other, and maybe even have it where they're both powered. I don't know, but that's later on down the road. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. I've got a fuel line that I'm having to build for the Super Duty. It had them weird little metal, well, it was actually plastic on one side of the fuel filter going to the engine, and the quick connect, and the quick connect coming from the fuel tank to the filter was metal, and it was so close to the filter housing I couldn't get a tool in there to remove it, so I had to break it off. Well, I'm having to build that line now that goes from the inlet side of the fuel filter all the way up to the tank. So I've been buying quick connects, and they got them little plastic lines you have to heat up and kind of melt onto the barb fitting. I think I've got everything now to get that fixed, and they also it had a fuel tank in the back between the frame rails, and then it had one on the side, on the driver's side, which it has now, the new tank. There was a little stainless steel line and actually wide off, and one went to the fuel tank on the side that it's in it now, and one went all the way to the back to that tank, and they had cut it and pinched it off. So when the fuel, this is what it looked like. This goes to the fuel tank in the saddle tank. This goes to the tank in the back. And then my arm is the line going to the engine. Well, the fuel pump was running into here, and then it had a block. And then it had this line that was about a foot long that went up here, was pinched off, and then it went to the tank. So fuel was trying to, it had a lot of turbulence, I guess. I'm sure it was, obviously it was still getting to the engine because the truck was running. But I don't think it was running properly. It just didn't have the power it's supposed to have. I mean, it would run down the road, but the first day that I actually drug my skid steer on my trailer to the job, it was, I don't know, 19 miles. It wasn't very far, but I ended up getting 2 miles to the gallon. And I know that big block isn't going to get very good mileage. I'm not worried about that, but it should get a lot better than 2. So I'm thinking, one, with that tank as dirty as it was, the fuel filter itself was probably plugged up, and 2, the injectors are probably all jacked up. So I actually have a new set of injectors sitting in the mailbox that come in yesterday. Problem is, it's so cold out now, and tomorrow is supposed to be possibly even icy and snow. I'm not putting injectors in that truck when it's like that. I'll wait till it warms up. I do need to get the line on it though, because then I can start driving it and put some stuff in the tank, seafoam. It might clear it up a little. It gets a lot better mileage when you're driving it, not pulling a trailer, obviously. It's a lot better than 2, but it's still not where it needs to be. But I can be driving it and helping clear out the junk in the system, because this truck sat for 10, 15 years in the field. So, with that being said, that's the end of this video, guys. The heater setup works, and like I said, you can go buy one of them that's pre-made. I can't ever find them. They sell plenty of these single setups, but if I'm not mistaken on a heater, if you run a single, you still have to have a bottle in the other side for it to work properly. I could be wrong, but either way, this way both burners light, and you actually get some heat out of it. But, and it's, for me, I build everything, so it's easier for me just to buy the stuff and build it. I did in the past, and I don't even know what I did with it. I might have thrown it away thinking I'll never need it again. We're in Texas. But anyways, so that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.